Okay, so sorry, any happy thoughts? Got to be some. Andy?
Yes, I have a happy thought.
Yes.
The thought is that it's great to be back when we're in person here and we can sit around the table and we can have a visit. Because I've had a visit with Les, as the people at our table have, and I have heard all about the equipment that's manufactured here in Chatham that's being used at the Olympics for sharpening skates, which a lot of you may not even know about. And other things where they have curling, where they have machines to level the ice before the curl. Manufactured here in Chatham. And it's great that we're doing that, but it's great that we get together, because in person on the screen, we didn't get any of that.
No, in person is wonderful. We're delighted for that. Anybody have a happy thought? Oh, and Andy, I'll bring out the little jar later.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait a minute. You got an appointment this afternoon. Maybe I'll have to hold off on that. Any other happy thoughts? Not at this time. So we'll move forward. And we do want to welcome Moira. We did mention last week that you had a birthday. You did, yes. So happy birthday to Moira. And also Doug Solman is this week, and Tom Story. I think it's today. Is that right?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Where's my chocolate?
Chocolate. I haven't seen chocolate in 2 years, so we'll have to check for that. The other thing we have is our club anniversaries. Peter Tanner is 7 years this month. Chandra Clark is 1 year this month. So at this time, I'm going to ask Karen Kirkwood-White if she'll come up and introduce our guest speakers, please.
Sorry about that. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce two of the gals that I've been hanging around with for the last couple of years. First is Renee Jennioli. She was born and raised in Blenheim. She's married with grown children and is now a grandmother. She says that she didn't find her stride until finding Rock Missions and helping to build the great organization that it is. She's now doing what she loves to do, which is helping people, making change in the community, and working with wonderful like-minded people. And her colleague, Colleen Lewis, has worked as a social worker at the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance for over 20 years now. On a daily basis, she sees patients who are not housed, who do not have access to basic needs, and who have numerous healthcare issues. Colleen started as a volunteer with Rock Missions in 2020 doing outreach, and she is now on their board of directors. As a Rock Missions volunteer, Colleen feels that she has more impact volunteering for Rock than any other time serving others. She is focused on building relationships with those who are street friends, those persons who are homeless or living in at-risk housing, because relationships are the foundation of Rock Missions. Please join me in welcoming Renee and Colleen.
And the microphone's not working. Hey, hello.
Hi.
And so to those on screen and in person, thank you for having us. Yes, we've been invited, but just having us present in person is, I will tell you, is initially awkward, but it's awesome. I haven't, overall in the last couple of years, I haven't stopped not doing in person, both at work and volunteering. So this is an awesome experience. I think the last time I did an in-person presentation was to the first strategy roundtable, was the last in person. So thank you for having us. So I'm Colleen, I'm from Rock Missions. I just want to spend some time today, and wherever you sit in life right now, we just want to give this opportunity to get to know Rock. Rock stands for Reach Out Chatham-Kent. And it was started in 2019. I'm trying to date myself here, 2019, out of a really organically out of a need. Okay. People, I'm hoping in Chatham-Kent are very familiar with Hope Haven. And I think which served the community in 2019 as an overnight shelter for men. So there were individuals helping out there, and their capacity is 10. So I always just go from those 3 individuals that just saw a need. So number 11, number 12, and number 13 that would not be housed that night would be fed by just those extra volunteers. But that relationship was started with those folks on the street. And then they just asked, well, where do you go now? And some would go down the street, some would flop at somebody's house, someone would be in an alley. So they would feed these individuals and follow them, talk, more conversations, days, weeks. And from that, they just saw that we need to do this. So there came the first 14 lunches. The first 14 lunches were literally out of a car, given to them on the street, wherever they are. And then that relationship kept building, and you like, could you stop over on this street? We're kind of hanging out here. So you stop there. We're over behind this building. Okay. And the relationship kept going on. Got to know everybody by name. You'd hear about a need. Do you need a ride to the hospital? Do you need a ride here? I need some clothes. I don't have shoes. Can you help me? And then go back and forth. From that, those relationships build to, I'll jump to today. Rock Missions is a nonprofit organization, and we serve 670 lunches a week now here in Chatham-Kent. That is only in Chatham and Wallaceburg, and we're building. We're building those relationships. I don't ever say we're building on buildings. We're building relationships. So when I say 370, that means 2 times a week. Our initial and focus is outreach. So meeting people where they're at. And that is how our values stem from there, is that if you can't meet a person where they're at, their understanding of what is happening in their lives, it can't happen. You know, so you bring the lunch to them, and then it says, what else do you need? Well, we're having difficulty, you know, getting, whether it's clothing, I'm having difficulty getting some of my supplies. I use substances. I said, okay. So then we built a harm reduction program with that. Harm reduction is a very specific piece of Rock Missions, where we do supply on the street from vehicles what is needed in order to use substances safely. It's also in this regard to sexual health. We want individuals, no matter where they are, and whether you are housed or not, should have access to the basic needs. So that is our initial piece. We are out 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. So that was how I got involved in January 2020. I went out, and I remember jumping into a truck loaded with stuff, and we would just stop at different places. It was meeting people that I got hooked. The individuals were just so grateful to have us show up with food, but they were also grateful that we just cared, that we know that they were going to be okay. And then following that next week, you're like, oh, here's that pair of shoes you asked for. And then it goes from there. I'm thinking about, trying to go to the hospital. I'm trying to get to detox. I'm trying to, call my mom, and I don't have a phone. Relationships keep being built. So, but Rock is a lot more than that now with our community connections. We now offer on the street, we bring services to the street that persons don't have access to. And Hep C testing, access to a ride to get a health card, access to using they'll use our phones to call the mental health, Canadian mental health, their mental health and addictions worker, their doctor, a friend. What else do we get involved in for community connections?
You want me to take over for a bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So Colleen is definitely the social worker of the two of us. I actually was blessed. We got some funding that I was able to take over as the operations coordinator of Rock Mission. So I'm more of the statistics and what we do person. So as Colleen said, right now in Chatham, we're serving 300 lunches twice a week. In Wallaceburg, we go out once a week and serve 70 lunches at that point. On top of that, we've also been able to create an emergency food box program. Yesterday alone, we dropped off eight emergency food boxes in Chatham. There'll be another couple more to go out today. The food insecurity in Chatham-Kent has increased exponentially with, well, we all know the price of rent, the price of food, the price of COVID. And so we've been able to build that program as well. But what Colleen is stating, which is perfectly the truth of what we do, is we go out and we look for people that are living either not housed, and there are people in Chatham-Kent right now that are living in tents or living outside in sheds, or they're very much precariously housed. They're couch surfing, they're flopping, and we have found probably 40 to 50 locations that we frequent every week, and we follow these people around because they're very transient, just to make sure that their basic needs are being met in some way, whether that be healthcare, whether that be physical needs. The harm reduction program, we created a peer-to-peer program through also some more funding we got, where we have actually been able to take on a couple of people with living expertise, and they teach us, what do you need? We don't know, we don't live that lifestyle. We're not the experts. So we were able to take on a couple of peers to be able to say to us, teach us how we can help best. So those are some of the extra or the most important things we do, and that's finding the people and building those relationships. We do technically have 7 active programs, and that is the outreach. We opened a drop-in center in Wallaceburg. So now we have an active and open drop-in center. So we're doing outreach, and people can also come into our facility for their needs, our harm reduction, our peer-to-peer program. We do have an MOU to help people with no ID to get their health cards back, our emergency food box program. So we have a lot going on. But the focus of it is, it's about the people. These are people, they're members of Chatham-Kent. And for whatever reasons, whether it be through stigma, through lack of gaps in our social services, these are people that are struggling, that just need somebody to walk with them. And when they're ready, that's what we're there for. You want to get hooked back up to your mental health worker. You want to try again with your Ontario Works. You're looking for housing. We work very closely with social services. The municipality here in Chatham-Kent, we work closely with their housing workers and the active emergency shelter that's open now. So we partner with as many places that we can to get these people when they're ready to go. Let's make a move. So those are kind of all the statisticky type things that we do, keeping in mind they're just people, and whether they use substances or they're in trouble with the law or whatever the case may be, those are things that we don't look at. We look at them as a person. We just need somebody with them to let them know that we care and that we want to help. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Mm-hmm. So your first is the everyone that is aware that the residential withdrawal management program is oh sure, the residential withdrawal management program that will be on site of a Chatham-Kent Health Alliance, which needs a lot of support from local and provincial, and I love everybody involved in that. It is it's important to because on the street we have, and I can remember last summer, I'll give you a very specific example. I'm on the street And this person's like, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, what are we ready for? I want to go to detox right now. I said, okay. So all our volunteers, even if they don't know what to do, sometimes they're like, well, what do I do? I said, we fuel them with different resources, or you're coupled with another volunteer. And we called all the detox. Then we had to find a volunteer driver, and you can get somebody to detox. But sometimes there's that callback system. It's very challenging. But the point is that you're sitting there waiting for a callback. Well, we're not on the street 24/7. That person doesn't have a phone. How do you call back 6 hours later to see if there's a bed? You know, it was challenging, because eventually we got them. Not that day though.
And keeping in mind that right now, if somebody's ready to go to detox, they're calling Sarnia, London, Windsor.
Yeah.
And so not only do you have somebody who doesn't have transportation, might not have support to get there, but they're asking them to go an hour in 3 different directions to try and find a bed when they're ready. When they're ready, right at that moment, they're ready to go. So bringing it to our community,
It's so vital.
it's an incredible, and we're so hopeful that everything works out the way that it should, because we have that ability to say, okay, I got so-and-so with me right now, let's go.
Yeah.
In our city, to get them that first step to making a life change, right?
Yeah, that comes the first step. So that's real in for Rock, serving our street friends every day. You get a call, and you would just want to move on it, but you lose people while they have to wait an hour or half a day or a day. We've called from the street, you know, can you call again? You call on a Saturday. Can you call again on Monday?
Yeah.
I can't find that person on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm hoping they're alive, which leads into Karen's second point. So sometimes we don't. And we unfortunately have had experiences where our volunteers have found someone that has passed due to overdose, in just neglect of having no basic needs. We have lost several by overdose in very violent situations. It's hard because the basis of ours is building relationships. So when I look at you, I can give you names. It's challenging, but their lives are what focuses on the next steps we take in regards to opening James Street in Wallaceburg, getting individuals off the street when it's -20, making sure they have a place to go, that they know each time they will be greeted, non-judgmental, walk in anytime, and you can get a meal. You also could talk about what else you would like to be connected to. It takes time to honor people. These are hidden deaths when they're individuals that are homeless and at-risk house. These are the deaths nobody talks about. And they need to be talked about because they're our community. Okay. So
In 2021, we lost 29 people. And that is all of Chatham-Kent, including Walpole, Wallaceburg, Chatham, a few that, and I mean, we might not have known all their faces. We might not have, we knew the majority of them, but alone in our area, 29 people, whether it be to violence or drug overdose, something along that nature. It's a lot of people. And that is, I mean, while it's heartbreaking for us, even at Rock, it's even harder for our community that we serve to watch their own colleagues and friends struggle to the point where they lose their lives. So that's just more trauma on top of the trauma that they've already, in some way, they all suffer from trauma in some form. So.
yeah. So we, anyone that is experiencing some form of homelessness, and there's lots of statistics you can look up, and it's the reason for homelessness is their obviously their disconnection to their disconnection to home base, whether that be their family, their foster home. There's a disconnection. Where does that disconnection come from? We have found 99% of the time it's been a traumatic experience somewhere in their childhood. You know, a distant connection with a parent, abuse from a parent, abuse from other siblings. We have many individuals, I will tell you, that we serve that are residential school survivors or have been parented by a residential school survivor. So cyclical, systemic trauma occurs, and that's who we're serving. There is so much information in regards to trauma and how it affects the brain and then the decision making and coping, and hence why when a person is homeless, survival skills are all they have because of their traumatic experience. And I just was learning again, looking at, well, we do try to look at best practice of who serve homeless across Canada. We try to keep things very real to what are others doing that are most effective. Renee, you probably already know this, but it's 75 to 80% of youth. So our young homeless, we do see 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. 80% of them are from the foster care system. So trying to connect with them and trying to build that relationship to reconnect them to any supports. When you're homeless at 18 years old in Chatham-Kent, your life expectancy goes down significantly. So trying to capture that, not that I don't work with the individual that we love, anybody that's in their 60s and still roughing it outside, but we're just trying to capture those individuals to see if we can reconnect them to supports. Further to that, I want to make sure that trauma brings them to the street sometimes. And why some folks stay on the street is because they're not connected to their community and other people, and they find family on the community and during, okay? So it takes a lot of time of building relationships and making sure that when a person gets housed, that those relationships are still there. Because leaving your family from the street who have been taking care of you or supported you or just giving you basic needs, it's still family. It's family on the street. It's family where they feel they're safe to stop. The familiar face in a restaurant, the familiar face at certain stores where they don't feel judged, they go there. It means a lot. So I know we've had individuals housed and they've gone back to the street because they miss the community. They miss that family connection. So it's trying to build their coping of how to have relationships and remain housed and build those skills that was lost when they were on the street. So does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that the number that you lose. Could I ask the question that what happens to the people that you lose? I mean, from the standpoint of being looked after, because they apparently don't have any relatives, or they don't have any money, or they don't have any friends. Something happens to that body. What is the municipality look after them? The province look after them? What happens from a happening point of view with that?
Do you want me to take that one? Unfortunately, so I'll just switch my hat for a second. I'm a social worker at the hospital, so I'll tell you from a hospital perspective when a body is found and there's no one. Yes, what they first do is they'll do a search and see if there's any monies or assets or anything. There are folks on the street with lots lots of fun sometimes, but again, they find family there. So they stay on the street and those funds are used first. And then whatever other income source, whether it's Ontario Works, ODSP, CPP Disability, they'll use those funds and then it would be in the municipality. There's a system to do this.
Was it referred to specific funeral home or?
No, all funeral homes can work with, there's an individual at the, it's under social services that takes care of the funeral arrangements and things like that. But any funeral home, so.
And are there funerals? Or
Yes, actually, yes. I will tell you that recently we were invited to one where there was a family member involved, and it is, you can have a viewing, what do you call it, traditional. You can choose, that person can choose cremation and a simple obit in publicized, and they will get a plot in more a city funeral area in our local cemetery. Yes, yeah. So all honor is there. I will tell you, not all municipalities do. So I do praise our Chatham-Kent for that, because I do want every life honored. So does that help?
Janet, another question?
Wondering about the interaction with your community you serve and services. Are your community serving the services or how does that work?
I think the answer is yes and no. So there's a few different types, or a few different reasons that, types is a better word, of homelessness. So what we're seeing an increase in recently is situational. So people that have maybe traditionally been housed to this point, but because of rising cost of everything, and because they're living below the poverty line, they may all of a sudden find themselves in a position where they can't afford to pay rent, or they're living in their vehicles or whatever. So they will go into the program, the housing program through the municipality, which they, and trust me, I don't envy their jobs one single bit right now, because housing is impossible right now. So they have a very hard job to try and find housing for as many as they can. Now, the people we serve, genuinely, to be frank, they go in and out. And it's because of the substance use and the trauma and the lack of support. I don't want to say lack of support. It's very hard for them to get good, solid mental health support. And it's because COVID, it's because their transitional nature, it's because of a ton of reasons. So they try, and they try hard, and they go into the system and they try to work the system, but then something happens and then they're back on the street. So it's a very, very cyclical nature. So like I said, the answer is yes and no. We tend to more interact with the people that are in and out, in and out, in and out, and they try. But that's where we work hard to connect them back to as many sources as they can to get that supportive housing, or the supportive everything, supportive services around them. Like what we would prefer is to eventually build a wraparound support where they do get daily support, that they can become housed and transition into a more stable lifestyle. Does that answer your question? Okay.
We work closely with the Rapid Rehousing Program, very closely. We call them every day, if not every week. Like it's, So there, and we built a relationship and a consent with the municipality, employment and social services. So if John is chronically homeless and it does go to the Rapid Rehousing Program and then exits that program, they'll call us and say, we can't find him. You know, we haven't seen him for 2 weeks. You know, we're working well with him. Could he consider coming back into Rapid Rehousing? And we try to find him and bring him back if he chooses, and support that. Because if they're in in Rapid Rehousing, they do it, a worker is there to work on housing with them specifically.
And it's quite a very unique and very well-run partnership in that they're the bricks and mortar trying to run the program here, but if they need somebody with the boots on the ground, where are these people? That's what we do, because we follow them. We usually know where most of them are, usually. Oh, yep. Oh, interesting.
And so I was just wondering how that is going.
Yeah.
They're working with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was almost a really interesting kind of marriage of what our two organizations do, right?
The legal thing is trying to help people stay in their place.
Yes. We talked to Jeff a lot.
A lot.
Just like the legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Chatham-Kent Legal Clinic, and Jeff is there, and he's just an immense support for those with working on tenants' rights.
Yes.
So we send him pictures of, notices of eviction or fake notices, which is often a tactic of individuals. They'll just pick up any notice and they'll put it on their front door, and they'll have intimidated people to leave their home, their apartment. So we're in constant connection with him. Again, that's another great partnership we have is with the Chatham-Kent Legal Clinic. Again, very grateful for that to help our street friends. Oh, the fan.
We'll speak louder. Absolutely. Karen was asking about how many volunteers we have. Currently, we, I would say active volunteers, we are probably in the 40 to 50 range. Altogether, when we look at Wallaceburg and who's coming on in Wallaceburg, we're pushing almost 80. Now we do have, so when we go out on outreach, say twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays, we have at least 10 to 12 people that come each of those days. There is a little bit of overlap, but we have our Saturday team and our Tuesday team. We have a ton of volunteers that came on board for the drop-in in Wallaceburg. Wallaceburg is an amazing community just for that. They network so well. It just kind of blows my mind. And then we have our own little kitchen team here in Chatham. And what they do is probably 3 or 4 times a week, they're coming into the United Way and making the lunches. So imagine 300 lunches. They do that every week, twice a week. It's quite incredible. So we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people behind us. We have great teams, I think.
And we try to be very creative in how our volunteers. We have a variety of volunteers. I mean, everybody's a lay person or community member to us. So even this week, one extreme is I have a lady. She is elderly, and I dropped off a ton of supplies to her, and she's going to individualize it all. She's going to break down our coffee, our whitener, our sugars. And she's making all these little packages. They're all individualized, right? So that person, I actually have never met her. Geraldine, and we just love her. I've never met her, but she does fantastic work for Rock because we need that. We need those individualized packages, but we also need the sandwich maker, and we also need the outreach volunteer. We need somebody checking our emails. We need a lot. It is a 7-day-a-week nonprofit organization with trying to have Renee work 5, which is not always possible. So next question.
Mine was kind of answered.
So mine is less of a question. My name is Tanya Sher, but I run the Chatham Library.
Yep.
Yay.
Yay.
I know, challenge. Yes. I know you have challenges, but we appreciate you.
So when you say that you lost a lot of your folks, we know as a staff of the Chatham Bridge, your folks sheltered their communities.
Yeah.
When the Hope was running the night shift, Chatham Bridge was
Yes.
we
Now you're-
were very tolerant, very tolerant. Too tolerant. We had to change a little bit because the safety of our staff was. So I still experience even now
Mhm.
And that's here in Chatham-Kent.
Mhm.
Right there for staff. We put them through homelessness training, first aid, mental health training, first aid training. We've done everything we can.
Mhm.
And I am now had to pay for sleep. Which I will not lose to.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What else? We want to respect the individuals. They don't respect the space they're in.
Mhm.
There's your really broad question.
Oh, it's fair. It's an absolute fair question.
Yeah.
And there's no, so even though we would, and we do sit up here and say, you know, we don't judge and we don't whatever, it's the flip side is the same on your side too.
Yeah.
And we respect that you have your business and your job to do. And if they are being intrusive in some manner, and it is affecting, of course, it's affecting your safety and it's affecting the safety of your staff. It's not an easy job that we do when we have to go out and deal with the used needles and look at somebody who's in a drug psychosis or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. It's not a rosy job by any stretch. We respect when you guys have to make rules too, right? And if you have to say that they're not allowed in your building, I get it. You also have patrons in there. You have the entirety of Chatham-Kent coming in to get a book. I totally get it, right? I don't know, Colleen, give your social work
We
answer.
are going to start. March.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have to shut ourselves.
yeah.
So your question's pretty huge and yeah, I'm a volunteer. So, but I will tell you to please know that some of it is out of need. Okay. And your empathy so far, and that's why I am grateful, because I refer to the library constantly as a social worker and mostly as a rock volunteer. Your community navigators are indispensable in regards to navigating, getting people access to different applications, accessing services, accessing their ID. So the library is a safe space, and our street friends will tell us that, and we want to make sure that, you know, we would love to continue to work with you and build that. Okay. Naloxone training is one facet of substance use. What I will ask, it will be trauma-informed care. That's the training I would absolutely, is that understanding where they're at is how we can all approach things differently. If we were more with a trauma-informed lens, which I am trying to invite even my employer to do, you approach things differently, and also engaging individuals and asking, you're struggling. We are unable to have this situation that is happening, that you're making, say, a disruption of some sort. How can we work together? I know your staff don't have time to have those big conversations, but that's where it starts, is conversations. No different than I do with any individual that I'm having difficulty with. It's having those crucial conversations. We can ask, we can ask some of the peers we work with. I can ask folks, what does the library do for you? And when things go bad, how could library staff work with you when you're struggling? In a drug-induced psychosis, those moments are very, very, can be very unsafe and scary. But if you have a trauma-informed lens, they're not as scary. There are ways to work with that individual in that moment. And getting to know individuals. We know our street friends, you know our street friends. So it's kind of knowing who's what is that pattern, and what's the basic need that's not being met. That's why we say there's something not being met. They don't feel safe, they don't feel housed. You said it yourself, and I'm just like, when Hope Haven was open all night, what was open during the day? I'm sorry, our street friends are not walking around with a proof of vaccination. They're lucky if they have clothes on their back.
Mm.
So can't go to Tim Hortons. You can't go to a local restaurant and at least take a couple bucks and get a pop. I'm not allowed anywhere. Our street friends have not been out anywhere indoors for 2 years. Hope Haven and the library and some churches, all that's been available to them. So tents are going up everywhere for these reasons. So my answer is trauma-informed care, trauma-informed lens to look at things, and let's work together. Rock in the library, our street friends, and just find an approach.
I think maybe Colleen hit it too. And if you're so willing,
Yeah.
let's meet after.
Yeah.
Let's bring in some of our peers that
Yeah.
we work with that maybe could come up with a plan to make things a little bit easier or copable than what they are right now.
Yeah.
If you're willing, we're absolutely on board with that.
Yeah. And we've run into some situations already, even with the James Street drop-in. Okay, so they're not, it's not easy situations, but we name our boundaries and we just say, let's work together on this. Let's take a walk, get some fresh air, and let's then come back and see what you're needing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you though for everything.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Hi.
Or just make a comment? Sorry, I didn't know if anyone can hear me there. Anyways, can the group hear me or?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to thank you guys, Rock Missions in general, because there is a huge gap in services, and it's really frustrating to see the same people over and over again that can't get resources and services. So I just want to say you guys do make a big difference, and we appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Constable.
Jen. Thank you.
Yeah, we another partnership obviously with the police. We call them, they call us. Can you find so and so? So and so's here at our front door. It goes back and forth, and super appreciative of when we're trying to find individuals and look for that. Like the police have been a huge resource, and how do we approach this differently? And that has developed that relationship too, which we appreciate so much too. So. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
thank you all for listening.
Thank you,
We really
ladies.
appreciate it.
Again, thank you very much. Appreciate, it's always good for us to learn a bit and know some of the challenges that are out there from our worlds that are obviously quite a bit different than the worlds that some of your clients are in the position of. Moving forward, next week, our meeting, again, will be here and in person. We'll have Angela Caruso from Community Living speaking to us. And I just wanted to put a note out there. Currently, the board has decided that our Challenger baseball field, we're going to put that on hold probably until about 2025. And we are working with the Chatham-Kent Child and Youth Planning Network to assist them with the project that they're going to be working on. So that concludes our meeting for today. I'm going to head over to Battery Boy and see if I cannot find some batteries that actually work for our microphone. And we will see you all next week and hopefully make it a little bit easier. A new battery or a new microphone?
One sure thing, we do need a microphone in this group.
Oh, I got a microphone. I got to find one that works. All right. Have a good day. And thank you all very much. Thanks, Jennifer.